All right, good evening. It's 6 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And this evening we will be in Genesis 16, 17, half of 18. And if we have time, part of Galatians 4. We'll see. That's ambitious, but we'll see what we can get through. We have through November for this class, so tonight and 3 more Sundays. Because then the first weekend of December is the kids program, right? And then after that, we are off until January. So we'll pick it up again. But announcement, this has nothing to do with tonight's lesson, but the search committee, y'all kind of did the surveys and handed them in. That is with great appreciation because it's very important for the search committee to know where the church is at. And so we can communicate that to prospective pastors because it's important for them to know who our church is and where our church is at. Because as much as we interview prospective pastors, they must interview us. They must also, do their due diligence to make sure that we are the church for them to come and minister as well. So I mentioned that to say that we will make available the results of the survey. We'll boil it down into one, summary form or whatnot, so everybody can kind of see, oh, here's the results. Here's kind of what happened. So we will be working on that. And then we'll probably make those available in the Sunday school classes or something, or anybody who wants to know. So that's what we'll be working on at some point soon. So that's separate business there. But tonight we're in Genesis 16. So before we jump in, who'd like to open us up in a word of prayer? All right, Michelle. Amen. Thank you so much. All right, as we know by now, a couple weeks we've talked about this Abrahamic covenant. What are the 3 main aspects? Land, seed, and a promise, a blessing, right? And we've looked at aspects that touch on those promises that Abraham, his descendants would have a land that God deeds to them. Intriguingly, it's from the river of Egypt. Some debate whether that's the Nile or this river here. It's a river in Egypt. I think you know which one it is. To the great river, Euphrates. And God's like, you will have this land. River of Egypt to the great river Euphrates. In history, and we'll talk about this more in the spring, Israel has never occupied the entirety of the land promised to them. Oh, what does that mean? God's fallen on his promise? No, of course. We'll talk about in the spring what that means. They don't have it yet. But the land is a big element to that promise. So is a seed, a son, descendants to come from you, Abraham. And when we kind of look into Abraham's heart with the chapters following, we really see that seems to be the one that he really longs for. And of course, as we know, he has no son. He's concerned that the chief servant of my household, this Eliezer of Damascus, since I don't have a son, he's going to have to be the one to be my heir. And God, of course, promises him, nope, not Eliezer, your own son from your wife Sarah will be your heir. And what did Abram do? He believed. He believed what God told him. He responded to the measure of revelation that was given to him positively. He trusted in God, placed his faith in the one true God. And of course, God looked at that and considered that righteousness. He credits to Abraham righteous, or Abram at this time, Avram. You are righteous because you believe. You trust in God and what he's told you and what he's doing. That's the essence of salvation for all of us, of course. What am I believing? Well, I'm believing what God's revealed to me, that Jesus Christ died in my place for my sins, and I place my faith in him, in the one whom God has sent. And so that's me responding to what God has revealed to me. That's me believing God, okay? And that's salvation. And it's beautiful, beautiful picture. Abram is that example par excellence of that. Now, of course, we get to chapter 16, and we read, well, one of us will read. How about somebody read verses 1 through 6 of Genesis 16? All right, thank you, buddy. We have a very a sad, sad series of events here. So Abram believed God, and God credited to him as righteous. So thankfully, because of that, for the rest of his life, he does nothing but good. Okay. Remember Paul in Romans 7. I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. Curse this flesh. You know, we all wrestle with the flesh. So even though Abram is saved, he just falls into a pit of unwise action here. And why is Sarah? Okay, so Sarai had borne him no children, and she's barren. Well, she had an Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. I wonder where she got her from. Maybe when they were down in Egypt, who knows? And Sarai said to Abraham, I have an idea. The Lord's prevented me from bearing children. I can't have any kids, Abram. But we can still have heirs. Hagar can bear children. Why don't you go into Hagar and let her bear a son for us? Okay, it's easy to judge other people, right? It's easy to evaluate their actions and say, oh, that was stupid. She's probably feeling desperate. She ain't getting any younger. Abram's not getting any younger. They're clinging to this promise, at least Abram is. And she hasn't seen it come about yet. God, you've promised this, but man, I've been waiting. I don't see it yet. And so she wants to circumvent the plan that God has assured Abram, your own son shall be your heir, and he'll come from Sarah. So she wants to circumvent this and get it going. And so her plan is, well, why don't you go into Hagar? She'll bear a son for us. And so he did. He does that. So he goes along with this scheme to circumvent God's plan, and that's very unwise. One of the reasons why we just know for sure it's unwise is we see the trouble that comes out of this. And this is after Abram lived 10 years in the land of Canaan. He's been sojourning in this land for 10 years, so he's 85 at this point. And Hagar conceives. And as soon as when Sarah sees that Hagar is conceived, how does Sarah begin treating her? Well, how does Hagar treat Sarah? In verse 4. Yeah, she despises her. She looks on contempt with her mistress. And we don't know everybody's heart. God does. But for her to despise her mistress, have contempt with her, Sarah picks up on this, like, oh, now what, is she gloating over me that now she has a kid? I couldn't do it, now she does? Well, it was her plan. It was Sarah's plan. But now Hagar's conceived, and she's kind of looking down at Sarah. This makes it very uncomfortable to Sarah. So Sarah lashes out at Abram, may the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to your embrace. Yes, of course, that's what you wanted. He went along with it. When she saw she'd conceived, she looked on me with contempt. Now she's gloating over me. May the Lord judge between you and me. Oh, okay. So this is just chaos in the family now because they took matters into their own hands to try to solve their problem in their own way. I dare to say they should have just waited for God to bring it about in his own time. But they do this. They fall into this sin of unwisdom here. And his response is like, fine, you know what? She's in your hands. Just do with her whatever you want. Stop nagging me about this, but do to Hagar whatever you want. So Sarai dealt harshly with Hagar. So now they're both at each other's throats. Abram's got a problem in his hand, but he went along with it. And she fled from her. So Hagar gets out of there. Remember where they're living at this time? There's a little quiz question. Where are they living? Look at all these pins. Pick one. Hebron, yes. You got it, Mike. The Oaks of Mamre specifically, kind of right outside Hebron. So they're in the southern part of the land, and as you get older, you retire to a drier southern climate. That's what a lot of people do, right? They go to Phoenix or Florida, whatever. A lot of people go to Phoenix because of that. But no, so he's down here, and then Hagar's going to get out of there because she's had enough of this. Now, this is amazing. The angel of the Lord, and if there's reason to not see it this way, I think it's safe, I think it's fair to default to the angel of the Lord, pre-incarnate Christ, second person of the Trinity, unless there's other reason to not take it that way. But usually when we have the angel of the Lord, that angel of the Lord oftentimes gives revelation, makes like divine decrees, accepts worship when it happens. So, pretty good reason to see that Christ found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to Shur, the spring on the way further south. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? I love these leading questions. God knows exactly what's going on, but he asks questions to stimulate responses. That's what a good teacher does. I think it's what an effective teacher does. Oh, what do you think? What's going on here? To try to draw out of the student, what's on their mind. But where have you come from? Where are you going? Cotton Eye Joe. All right. She said, I am fleeing. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Tab. Appreciate it. Okay, I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, and this would have been hard for her to hear, but this is what he wants for her. Return to your mistress and submit to her. Go back. I know it's tough. But go back and submit to her. The angel of the Lord also said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. Very similar promise he gave to Abraham, isn't it? You'll have so many descendants they can't even count them. Hagar, don't worry. You too will be the mother of many nations here. I will multiply your offspring that they cannot be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Behold, you are pregnant and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, which is a form of God hears or God listens, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. I care about you too, Hagar. He shall be a wild donkey of a man, okay? The people that come out of Ishmael, what people are these? Yep, we got Saudi Arabia over here. We got the Arabian Peninsula. We got Arabs, all the Arab tribes. They end up coming from Ishmael. He'll be a wild donkey of a man, and his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. Yeah, that kind of fleshes out in history, doesn't it? He shall dwell over against all his kinsmen. So Ishmael's people end up kind of going southeast throughout the Arabian Peninsula. And, by the way, this is a point of contention for Islam. Arabians specifically, but Islam in general, will say, well, we are the true inheritors of the Abrahamic covenant. We are the people, specifically Arabs, but Muslims will also latch onto this. We are the true children of the promise of Abraham. Why would they make that claim? Because Ishmael, firstborn. We've come from Ishmael. Firstborn of Abraham. The firstborn receives the inheritance. Duh, everybody knows that. That's basically their claim. We are the true people of God because we are the inheritors of the Abrahamic covenant, the promise of Abraham, because our forefather Ishmael was the firstborn. What do you think of that? Pretty good argument, huh? Case closed. Well, we'll see a bit more that will speak to that. But God does care for Hagar here, and I will take care of eventually him and the people that come from him. I have a plan for them, and he has used them through history.
This is really directed at Hagar, but is it not from Abraham that she's getting this blessing?
Exactly right, Mike. That was going to be one of my next questions or statements. Why is it that he's a caring God anyway, but why is it specifically he's caring for Hagar in this way and carrying on her son's lineage to greatness? Because it is Abram's son. Ishmael is Abram's son. And for the sake of Abram, he too will be blessed and magnified as a people, at least numerically. And he goes on to have an important place in world history by virtue of being Abram's son. So, in one regard, you could be like, oh, okay, that's a decent claim you got then. He is Abram's son. God does care to bless him and take care of Hagar and Ishmael. But there's a big problem with that, of course. He's not the son of the promise, okay? The promise, the Abrahamic covenant, would be inherited by his own rightful legal son through Sarah, his wife, not Hagar, the servant. If we have time to get to Galatians 4, we'll kind of see some of that. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, "You are a God of seeing, El Roi." For she said, "Truly here I have seen him who looks after me." She's comforted greatly by this. How can you not be? Encounter Christ. He's giving you these great promises. That's comforting. Now, he did tell her, go and submit to your mistress, and that would have been a hard command, but she's going to do this. Therefore, the well was called Be'er Lahai Roi. It lies between Kadesh and Bered. It's possible there were several Kadeshes, really. It's possible this was Kadesh Barnea, between Kadesh and Bered furthest. I don't have a pin for Bered, but she's south of where they were. She's going into the desert. And next week we'll see she kind of heads this way again and finds some trouble that God saves her from. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael, because that's who God told her to name him. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. He leaves her on 75. He's there for 10 years. Sarah has this plan that Abram goes along with. The next year when he's 86, Ishmael's born. All right, so we got Ishmael coming from Abram. He has a son now. Yay. It's true, he has a physical son, but not with his wife yet. That was through Hagar. All right, pretty simple, straightforward, streamlined chapter, but any questions about that? 16 is a quick one. Now we get to chapter 17. And that was when he's 86 years old, Ishmael's born. Now we see a transition to 17 when Abram was 99 years old. So ... and 13 years later, so he just keeps living life, and Ishmael's growing up, and there's so much about even the patriarchs about their lives that we just don't have recorded for us. I'd love to just live with Abraham for some random year and be like, what's life like? In the off years, the non-biblical years, and just kind of see who he was and what life was like. It would have been amazing. But I like this transition because I think it reinforces an important point that we always must consider when we're reading the scriptures. When we read, oftentimes, if you're like me, it can feel like just quick hitting events in rapid succession, right? Because I'm reading one verse, then I'm reading the next, then I'm reading the next, and I'm not seeing all that goes on in the time between, in the space between. And if we really just consider the word carefully, we can see, there's so much going on that's not even recorded for us. And so God has time to work through a lot of things he's doing, and a lot of time passes. A lot of people are waiting for a long time for promises. Now we have 13 years later. For the next 13 years, Abram and Sarah still are waiting for their son. And Ishmael's growing up. He's 13 years old. He's become a man, basically, at this point. They still don't have their son. It's a long time. But when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. Abram's already a saved individual, but here God is talking to him again. I'm God Almighty. Be blameless before me. Walk before me, that I may make my covenant between me and you and may multiply you greatly. Well, they've already had the covenant ratification ceremony. God had already said you can have a land, seed, a blessing, all this sort of stuff. He gives them the stipulations of the covenant. He has the ceremony of the covenant and even the sacrifice of the covenant. That, remember, Abram cut him in two and slept through it. It's that unilateral covenant. Well, now we're going to see a token of the covenant. And remember, I talked about this in the Noahic covenant. What was the token, the symbol of the Noahic covenant? The rainbow. And what's the symbol of the covenant that I entered to with my wife of marriage? That's the ring, right? It's the thing to remind me when I look upon it, I should be mindful of, the promises I made to Jonna. They're not contained in the ring. If I take the ring off, I'm not married anymore. No, but it's the symbol, it's the token that I can see that reminds me and reinforces, it should, in me, that the promises I made to her. Okay, so now we're going to get the token of the covenant. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. Not just the one, that we all know about, the nation of Israel that would come from him. You're going to be the father of a multitude of nations. Already we see Ishmael, and several nations will come from him. And Esau will come along. Other nations can claim physical descendancy from Abraham, not just the Jewish people. I will make you a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Avram, exalted father, but your name shall be Avraham, the father of a multitude, or many nations, or many peoples. Now I can go back to just calling him Abraham without having to correct myself. I like this. For I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between you and your offspring. Okay. Which offspring? Well, of course, we'll get there. After you throughout their generations for a covenant that lasts a few years until I'm sick of you. No, of course not. For an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. And I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land of your sojournings and all the land of Canaan for possessions of a few years until you screw it up. No, and I will be their God. And all right, maybe every time we've come across language like this, maybe you're sick of it by now. I often kind of do that, right? That's not at all me making light of the situation. That's me highlighting what I think is a grave error. And I think it's a grave error to look at the promises that God had issued Abraham and anybody else who he entered a covenant with, and to think that they have an expiration date. Okay, when we go through the scriptures, you cannot avoid, like a slap in the face, the reality that these things that God is promising to them are an everlasting, eternal covenant provision. And if we look around the world today and see, well, these things don't really seem to be the reality in our world, what do we do with that? May we never suffer from the chronological snobbery that thinks that we, the day and age we live in, this is where history's been going to. I live at the apex of history. We got iPhones now, man. I mean, it's all good now. All that's ancient history. Now this is what God has cared about to get to my day. That's very prideful. Remember, we live on a continuum of history. We should look back and see biblical history, and we should look forward and see biblical history. God is not done yet with the things that he has promised Abraham. And later, as we'll see, things he'll promise David. Okay, yeah.
Abraham, so this promise, not only was it a physical promise, but it was a spiritual promise that the people that had faith like Abraham would continue continually multiply through the years, and we are part of that seed that Abraham was. Maybe not the physical seed,
Right.
but the spiritual seed, we are like Abraham.
Absolutely, and that was a contention when Jesus came along. He had to convince his hearers of what they should have gotten all along. Okay, oh, we're fine. We're sons of Abraham. We physically descended, and any number of passages we could look at, and we will in the spring, of course. We physically descended from Abraham, so we're good. We're good in God's eyes. We don't need anything what you have to offer us because we're children of Abraham. And Jesus, in one of the times, tells them, don't try to claim descendancy from Abraham as if that justifies you before God. Why? Because God could raise sons of Abraham from the stones. If that's what it was about, these stones could be going to heaven, because that's not what it's about. True children of Abraham are those who do what their father did. And what did he do? He believed. Anybody can be a true child of Abraham. Anybody around the world can be a true descendant of Abraham by faith in Jesus Christ, by believing God. That's how you become a child of Abraham. You're not born into it physically. Yeah, there is a physical people that come from him, and the physical people that come from him are of concern in this everlasting possession promise of the land. You will have an innumerable amount of physical descendants, Abraham, and he does. But if you want to talk about being a child of Abraham that has everlasting life to enjoy fellowship with God, your creator, for all time, you do what Abram did. Believe. That's what justifies somebody. That's how God credits to us, not even so much a credit anymore, the payment's been made, applies the payment to us by faith, by virtue of faith. Not by works, and we know all about that.
But on that, the works that we have, that we do after we believe, still takes faith to have works that are significant.
Yes, and that's James's big point in his letter.
It says that we are going to stand before the judgment seat of Christ, and all of our deeds are going to be put on the
Yeah.
altar.
Yep.
And they're going to be burned. And some of them are going to be straw and stubble, and some of them will be gold and silver. And so the ones that are gold and silver are the ones that we do by faith,
Yeah.
what God calls us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we saved by good works? No. Does God care about the works we do? Yes, he does. They don't justify us. They don't save us. He is concerned by how we live our lives, by what we do, and that's one of James's big points. I will show you my faith by my works. We're not saved by good works. It's been stated before. We're saved for good works, right? This is Ephesians 2:10, after the famous 8 and 9. For my craftsmanship, created for the good works. He does want us to do good works. They don't save us, but they should flow out of our faith. And we can know people by their fruits. Now, we're not their judge. I declare you innocent or guilty before God, but we can evaluate their fruits and be like, that person just has no concern for the cause of Christ. That person just really is not even living at all like a Christian. I can evaluate and be like, I'm not their judge, but are they even really in Christ? The way they live their lives is totally antithetical to anything biblical. And we all struggle. Of course, we saw Abraham struggle. And we all do, if we're honest. And this is 1 John. If you say you have no sin, you're not walking in the light, man. You're a liar. We all do. This is Paul in Romans 7. I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do. Curse this flesh. We all struggle. But, I was helping somebody this morning. I was talking with Brother Royce at lunch. Somebody that's a recent graduate of the college ministry. He struggles a lot, and he's a good guy, and I do believe that he loves the Lord. And he was struggling with, talk about he's autistic. You might know who I'm talking about. He's autistic, and so he told me, the message about judgment. It makes me scared. It's hard for me. I said, why is that? Well, because I'm worried I'm not good enough to be in heaven. And I said, you're not, and neither am I, and none of us are. And just kind of helping him work through the peace that is there and the forgiveness that, so when we do stand before God in judgment, yeah, our works are open, but he can look at us and say, you are innocent because I paid for this. Jesus Christ has paid for this. And so, yeah, lots more we could talk about there. Great stuff. But an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. We will talk more about that in the spring. And God said to Abraham, as for you, you shall keep my covenant. You and your offspring after you throughout their generations. This is interesting. You shall keep my covenant. What stipulation did God impose upon Abraham to keep? This is a unilateral covenant. Abraham doesn't have to do anything. So when God says, you shall keep my covenant, I don't think that's so much, you better do this. It's you're going to do this. You're going to keep it. You don't even have to do anything. You shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you, throughout all the generations. Your offspring will also keep my covenant, Abraham. That's interesting because his offspring, we see in biblical history, have done a lot more despising God than they have loving him. So how can God say, your offspring will also keep this? Because it's unilateral. They can't get rid of it. And this is so important. Abram, I'm going to make sure this all comes about. You can't even do anything to throw it off, even if you tried. There's nothing Abram's offspring can do. Now I'm calling him Abram all of a sudden. There's nothing Abraham's offspring can do to throw off this covenant. Nothing they can do. Think about the worst thing they could possibly do in human history. Reject the Messiah. They will keep this covenant, everlasting possession. Even rejecting the Messiah as they did when he came doesn't throw off these covenant promises. It means that when he returns, what will they do? They will look upon him whom they have pierced and they will wail. It was him all along. And then they will believe because God will turn their hearts of stone into hearts of flesh. It's amazing. Abram, that will happen. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Now here's the one thing you have to do as the token of it. This is what I want you to do, all you partakers in this covenant. I want you to do this as the token. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male throughout your generations, whether born in your house or bought with your money from any foreigner who's not of your offspring. Both he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money, he shall surely be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh, an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. So that is why circumcision then was required by law, by Mosaic law to them, because they were parties to this covenant. Okay, so this covenant with you, Abram, those who actually are the ones to receive it, they must do this as a token of it. All right, somebody read verses 15 to 21.
And God said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, she shall not be called Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and indeed I will give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said to his heart, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. But God said, no, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this season next year.
Thank you. All right, so he renamed Sarai as well. Sarai into Sarah. The best we can figure, through the Hebrew etymology is it basically means the same thing, princess. There might have been something lost to us by then. Sarai to Sarah, what's the difference there? Kind of means the same thing. They would have understood it more in that context, no doubt. But you're going to be the father of many nations. You're exalted father. Kings will come from you. It's only appropriate that your wife means princess too. She's going to be the mother of all this going on. I will bless her, and I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of people shall come from her. It's you and her. It's you and your wife, Abram, not Hagar. You shouldn't have done that. You did. Now we have Ishmael. And for your sake, I'm going to bless him too. Then Abram fell on his face and laughed. Now this is interesting. He laughs. Sarah will eventually laugh. One gets treated like seemingly harsher than the other. And you wonder why, right? They both laugh. Okay, Zechariah and Mary. Name dropping now. Mary and Zechariah. Zechariah, John the Baptist's dad. Gabriel announces to him, you're going to have a son, your wife's going to have a son, all these great things. What? How can this be? Silence, you. Mute it. Mary, Gabriel announces to her, you will bear a son, even greater son, and all these great things. Oh, how can this be? Oh, let me tell you. Why the difference? Remember, God sees the heart. And so Zechariah probably was like, come on, really? How can this be? Mary was probably more like, a wonder of God and awe of it all. How can this be even to me? She was probably had a more humble approach to the whole thing, And here, Abram, he falls on his face and laughs and said to himself, shall a child be born to a man who's 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who's 90 years old, bear a child? And Abram said to God, you wonder why he said, that Ishmael might live before you. Wow, Abram, how can a man of God waver like this? There was a great king one time over Israel. A man after God's own heart, if you will, who was a saved individual, a great man of God, who fell into some pretty deep sin. How can a man of God sin? Man, isn't that horrible? It is horrible. We should understand how a person after God's own heart still can sin. Already mentioned it a few times. I do what I don't want to do. I don't do what I want to do. Curse this mortal flesh. We are all fallen. We still wrestle. We are being progressively sanctified, looking more and more like Christ, but we're still not perfect. We're not totally free from our sin nature in our flesh until we are glorified with the Lord. So Abram here, he's wavering a bit, it seems. Now, he still is the paragon of faith. Even the paragon of faith can waver a little bit. If anything, that should, I think, comfort us. Oh, man, I'm like David. I'm like Abraham. I'm not as great as those men. I'm not saying that. I'm like them in that I waver, and I fall into temptation too sometimes. Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. I already have a son. Use him. God said, no, but Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son. You shall call his name Isaac. And now what does Isaac mean? He laughs. Laughter. Abram, you're laughing about this? Man, name your son how you reacted to this, so that you will always remember how you reacted to this. I will establish my covenant, the one they've been talking about, with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. Later we'll see that he has two sons, Esau and Jacob, and it's going to transfer to one and not the other. Okay. As for Ishmael, I've heard you. Behold, I've blessed him, made him fruitful, multiply him greatly, 12 princes, great nation. But you know what? My covenant is with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year. Now we have a more focal point here. Next year. It's going to happen next year, Abram. You've waited for many years. Many years have passed. Next year is the time. Now when he finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham Then Abraham took Ishmael his son and all those born in his house or bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very day as God said to him. That doesn't mean the covenant was transferred through Ishmael, of course. It just means Abraham was told, every male in your household, do this, because you're the bearer of the covenant here, Abraham. So he does. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. You go through that when you're 99. That's probably tough to bounce back from as an 8-day-old, let alone an adult, Timothy, right? 99 years old? And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very day, Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised. We've talked a lot about circumcision here tonight, haven't we? This isn't even a medical class. And all the men of his house, those born in the house and those bought with money from a foreigner who were circumcised with him. All right. Another kind of straightforward chapter, right? But this Abrahamic covenant, we can talk about so many things, springboard into what it really means to believe, what it really means to be a child of Abraham. And of how, yes?
Because we're still in Genesis where people lived hundreds of years and still had kids. So why is that such a taboo thing to him that, oh, I'm 100 years old?
That's a good question. From Noah on down to Abraham, those were the generations of really shortening lifespans. So by the time you get to Abraham, 100 now is pretty old, right? And this is more kind of in line with what we consider to be modern ages. And, in studying history, even after biblical history, throughout Europe and stuff, it's a common kind of misconception that the average age was 30, so humanity dipped and then went back up with modern medicine. It did go up with modern medicine. But what brings down the averages is all the infant death and all the people dying in war. People still lived decades after their 30s. The people still were living even in world history, the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's just more people were dying earlier, and that brings down the average. But from Noah on down to Abram, you do have a shortening per generation to get down to what God did declare in Noah's day. His years will be about 120 years. Does he get to 120 specifically? Yeah, and Abram gets around there to 175 or something. Okay. Yeah, 175, something like that. Abram goes for a while, and the patriarchs still are living longer lives. That partly could be God is just blessing them in that way of giving them longer life. But partly I think that was their generation. Remember, I talked about this in previous weeks in Genesis. You can track the record, pretty good historical records, get us to about 2000 BC, to about Abram's day. And as good of records as we can. This ancient empire lasted for this many days, and they had the years, and they had this emperor, and we can kind of maybe say it was 1200 BC, whatever. We can get to about 2200-ish BC with some pretty good records, and then anything beyond that is just wild. You get ancient Babylonians be like, Emperor Oompa-Loompa, ruled for 45,000 years. No, he didn't, And so you get past a certain threshold, and it's all wild. Because there weren't records then. And modern history kind of starts around Abraham's day. And so secular historians, of course, will be like, the Paleolithic people started settling 35,000 years ago. And they're just totally shooting in the dark. And they got no historical records to go from. And you get Egyptian history past about 2200 in Abraham's day, gets also kind of wild like that too. A lot less secure on what we can see of years going on. Modern history really starts with Abraham, pretty much in every way, shape, and form. But that's a good question. By his generation, 100 is pushing it. He still has some decades to go to. 100. Ooh, Isaac got him. Isaac beat him. Okay. And any father, Abraham would say amen. Any father would want their kids to outlast them. All right, chapter 18. Now, the Lord appeared to Abram by the oaks of Mamre. We're back in Mamre. Oaks of Mamre. I just like zooming. I like seeing this. I have actually never been here. I'd love to be here. I've never been to Hebron, never been to Mamre. All the times I've been to Israel. Never got here. I'd love to be here someday. This is where Abram lived. As he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Now, does he know these are angels of God? Yeah. This Lord, the Hebrew is Adonai, it's not Yahweh. Even if he doesn't know, I think it's possible he doesn't know who these guys are yet. Hospitality is so important in the ancient world, and still to this day in the Middle East. I got a wild story for you if we had time about how important hospitality is even to these people. So he would have done this for anybody coming by. Oh, let's race. No, please, my Lord, term of honor. Stay here. My wife will bake you some bread. Please stay here. Turn aside. It's a hot day. You're traveling. Let me refresh you. It's what a good person would do. And to this day, the Bedouins, I like this because this is where we get a common phrase that the Bible even uses. The Bedouins to this day, they're nomadic, they're living in tents and stuff like that. And they've always kind of had this tradition. If you go, and if you're invited to fellowship with a Bedouin in his tent, that's an honor anyway, you go and you start talking, and they'll bring out the coffee. So I already like what's going on here. They bring out the coffee, they have a cup. And if they pour a little bit in and just leave it there, what is that telling you? Finish your cup and go. We're done here. If they pour all the way and let it overflow a little bit, that's their way of saying, please stay. Spend time together. Your cup is overflowing. Your cup overflows. Welcome. I want you to stay. You are an honored guest in my tent. And that's, hospitality is, okay, I will tell the story. We got time. Might have to push off Galatians 4, sorry, but okay. Our trips to Israel, when we can go as a church, hopefully, I'm looking at the spring of 27. I don't know, stay tuned for that. I know we tried last summer in 2024, and then current events, we were so rudely interrupted. But we'll hope maybe we can go in the spring of 27. Maybe we'll be with my friend Nabil. Nabil is a pastor in Jerusalem. And he was, so when you go and you have a group in Israel, you have to have a licensed guide to go with you, or else they're not going to let you in anywhere. You, a friend of Campbell, can go anywhere, but a group, you have to have a licensed guide. And so Nabil would serve as our licensed guide, because he is one. And now, we would do all the teaching anyway, and he would just come along for the ride. Literally, he was our bus driver. He was also a licensed bus driver. It was the best of all worlds. You got Nabil, who is Israeli by citizenship, Arab by descent, Christian by faith. He's a pastor in Jerusalem. This is the best of all worlds, because we can go to places that like Jews have a hard time going. We're talking West Bank, we're talking Jericho, Bethlehem, some other places that he's an Arab, so he goes and they're like, oh no, talking Arabic and all that, and so he's great. He knows everybody. But he's along for the ride, quite literally. He's bringing us wherever we want to go, all throughout the country. Nabil's a great advantage to have. He was telling me a story one time where he was in Paris. And if you're up on current events, Paris is becoming a lot less French these days, if you know what I mean. He's in Paris, and he's witnessing to Muslims in Paris. He speaks Arabic and all that sort of stuff. He's a Christian. He's witnessing to them. And so a Muslim, he was started to get into some hot water, some dangerous territory. Openly evangelizing Jesus Christ to the Muslims in Paris, France. And as he could tell, the conversations get a little heated. He somehow invited himself over to this guy's apartment. He knows what's up. And so the guy, okay, sure, you can come to my apartment. And so Nabil shows up, and the guy welcomes him into his apartment. It's key. And so they're talking, and Nabil is trying to give him the gospel, and this guy's getting so mad at him, and he says, you know what? I was going to kill you today, but since you've been a guest in my house, I cannot. Hospitality is so important. And Nabil knew what was up, and he got somehow an invite. He got it because he probably knew that's what would save his life. Hospitality is important. And Abram is showing hospitality to these men here. Whether or not he knows they're angels yet, it's not necessarily that he did. But if I found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. Now, this is great hospitality here, humility. Let me serve you. So they said, do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes. And Abram ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared, set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. This is a great provision that he's giving to his guests. They said to him, oh, where is Sarah, your wife? Well, these guys know. These guys know Sarah. And he said, oh, she's in the tent. The Lord said, now this, the Lord is Yahweh. It's interesting. So as one of these guys, we got 2 angels and the Son of God. Maybe this is what we have going on here. I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. Now what does that mean? Yeah, the way of women, that's how they kind of thought. It doesn't mean that your only value as human beings is bearing children, but what that does mean is what an honor. That was kind of the primary way that they saw the way of women, of bearing children. Like what an honor that you get to satisfy God's creation mandate in such a way. That is, I think, one of the biggest logical crimes that our society today makes. They downplay the honor that it is having children. And I'm talking about our, kind of our secular, liberal-minded society. They think it's trapping women and, it's ridiculous. I'll just go have a career and say, whatever. Nothing wrong with having a career, nothing wrong with working, but when you place so much emphasis on anything but childbearing, which our society does, that's tragic. What a fantastic honor it is to bear children. Man, that's amazing. Sarah has lived beyond that. The way of women had ceased. She's no doubt gone through menopause already. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I'm worn out, and my Lord is old, and my husband, even Abraham, is old, shall I have pleasure? Shall I have the honor of bearing forth children, or even other pleasure if she has something else in mind? The point is, I'm too old for this. She's laughing like this can't happen. Maybe she's given up. She kind of did, 13 years prior. It's like, oh, it's going to Hagar. It seems that Sarah's given up. Well, the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I'm old? Why is she laughing at this? Look at this. Oh, I love this. I cling to this. Is anything too hard for the Lord? I need to remind myself of this, and I'll open up to all y'all here. I only want one thing in this life, and some of you know what that is. I only want one thing in this life. I don't want anything else. I want my daughter Michaela to be saved, and I weep for her daily. And I say I only want one thing because I know my wife is saved. I know my other 2 girls have a testimony of salvation. If it was one of them, I'd say the same thing about that. My parents are saved. That's why I only want one thing. I just want Michaela to come to the Lord so desperately. I now, as a parent, kind of get what Paul meant before I was a parent, and I would almost kind of be like, come on, that's extreme, Paul. I wish that myself were accursed so that my brothers could come to faith in Christ. And before having a child, I was like, come on, that's a bit extreme. Now I get it. if I could be accursed so that she may come to the Lord. That's all that I want. And it seems impossible. Now I know she's only 16, so some of you all, you've been through this, but it destroys me every day. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Ask, and you shall receive. Is anything too hard for the Lord? The rich young ruler goes off. Well then who can be saved? With man it's impossible. With God all things are possible. Why is Sarah laughing at this, Abraham? Would she think it can't be done? Is she saying that I can't do this? I know she's past the way of women. I know she can't bear children. She never has. I get it. But she's laughing at me. She's laughing at what I'm telling you you're going to have a son next year. And she's laughing about it. Is anything too hard for the Lord, Abraham? Anything. I created the world by the fiat power of my voice in 6 days. Let there be light, and there was. You think I can't bring a son? Now, he could have gone on. Abraham, you laugh too, I know. She's laughing about this. Both of you have laughed about this. Don't lose faith. Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son, even though they wavered in faith. God didn't yank it from him and say, oh, no, you've lost out on it, buddy. She will have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And I don't blame her for being afraid. He said, no, but you did laugh. We'll pick it up from there next week. But look at how the man of faith struggled and wavered and even took action that revealed a lack of faith. I believe, help my unbelief, the man that came to the Lord to get healing for his son. Have you ever felt that? I believe, help my unbelief. God, I know that I'm saved. I know that I'm your child. I'm a true child of Abraham by the faith that I have placed in your Son, Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. But help my faith, because I wrestle through this day. I face temptations, I face trials, and I'm tempted to waver. I believe, help my unbelief, my God. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Any thoughts on all this?
Our faith for salvation is needed, but we also need the faith when we have our Katie Barnish moment. We are asked to move in against the giants of our life. And we say, oh, but you're not big enough to You're big enough to save me, but you're not big enough
Yeah.
to take care of the issues of my life.
Yeah.
And sometimes, that's kind of what happened here.
Yes.
We had a Katie Barnish moment, and that's when the Jews sent the spies out.
Yeah.
And they came back with a baby different.
The 12 spies is such an interesting event. Yeah. They came back realizing humanly the reality. We can't beat these people. Joshua and Caleb were like, you're right, we can't. God can. He told us to. We can. They knew they didn't have it in themselves to conquer this battle. No doubt, Joshua and Caleb knew, you're right, we can't beat these tough guys in the walled cities. No way can we. We don't have to. Is anything too hard from God? So that's where Joshua and Caleb shine. They didn't waver in that moment. They stayed true to their faith in God. He can do this. And the 10 were like, I don't think we could. They did not focus on the things above, did they, in Colossians 3? They settled their mind on the things below, and they were terrified. I don't blame them for being terrified, and I don't blame them for making the human evaluation, we can't defeat these guys, because you're right, you can't. It's not the point. Joshua and Caleb got the point. God can, God will. He promised this to us. and he commanded us to go up and take it. Have I not given it to you? It's yours. Just go up and take it. We all wrestle with the flesh. I wish we didn't. And that too is what I spoke about with this young man after the service. I said, you encourage me because you are concerned. You want to be godly. You want to live a good life for the Lord. You are concerned about the sins you commit. Man, there is no greater evidence right now to me that you really are trusting in the Lord. You're right, you're not good enough to make it to heaven. And none of us are. You don't need to be afraid of that. I try to reorient on how he can have peace and trust. All right. Yes.
It's pivoting a little bit, but with all the hospitality that you were talking about, and that is such a huge part of that culture. Hebrews 13:2 states, "Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it."
There you go.
Into from then to now, you don't hear everyone come knocking at your door saying,
Right.
"Hey, can I have a..."
I think the main point there is technically possible an angel could come to your house, you don't even know it. Technically possible, sure, that's what happened. And I think the main thrust of the idea there is not so much, someday you're probably going to have angels, you don't even know. The point is, be hospitable to everyone. I'm sure he had Abraham in mind as the example. Look what Abraham did. He didn't even know he had an angel that day. Not only a couple angels, but the Son of God. And he showed hospitality. Look at how important that was to show hospitality. He didn't even, probably then that shows it. I think he didn't even realize who he had at the moment until they started confronting him about Sarah's laughing about it. And so, yeah, I think the main point, yeah, technically possible you might have an angel in your house today. You wouldn't even know it. But the point, I think, is do it, because look what happened with Abraham. It's so important to show hospitality. All right? Father, we love you, and we just thank you so much that you are God of grace and mercy and patience and long-suffering. And we see here Abraham so much greater than any of us in this room, how he still wavered and of how he still fell into temptation and unwise and sin. But that you are so faithful to your promise, you kept him all the way through. And we know that you keep us each and every day in your hands. And we thank you that you don't cast us out when we sin, but you meet us with grace. And if we confess our sins, you are faithful and just to forgive us. We thank you for that. In Jesus' precious name, amen.